Good afternoon and welcome to Mr. Franklin Explains Some Math. Today we're going to be talking about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is what you use when it's too hard to solve a quadratic using factoring. I've embedded a link here for a video. There's a whole genre of math explainer videos on the internet, and some of them are truly excellent, and this is one of the really good ones. It is a rap video explaining the quadratic formula. I'm going to give you my take here. Looking at the quadratic formula, you can see that there's some different parts to it. One of the parts is here under the square root sign. It's b squared minus 4ac. You take the value of b and you square it, and you subtract 4 times a times c. We're going to have to be careful about PEMDAS, the order of operations here, because if we don't do these things in the right order, obviously we'll get the wrong answer. Over here, the value of b is turned negative, but if it was already a negative, it becomes a positive. This negative here just switches the sign. This plus and minus symbol means that there are two different answers that we're looking for. One of them is negative b plus the square root, and the other one is negative b minus the square root. So we're looking for two answers. And then each of those answers is divided by 2 times a. And we'll go through that process here. I've got an example of a quadratic equation here. It's already written in standard form, which means that there's a 0 on this side, and the exponents, the terms, go in decreasing order of their exponent from the squared term, the x term, and the constant term. We've got to look at these. If there is a number in front of the x squared, then that's a. Remember that if there isn't a number in front of a variable, the number is 1, not 0. Very important. Here, b is negative 13, so this is subtract 13x. That means that the value of b is negative 13. That's going to come into play very soon. And c, the constant, is 15. Probably the most complicated part of this formula is the b squared minus 4ac under the square root sign. So let's tackle that first and get it out of the way. What I'm going to do is just take b squared minus 4ac, and I'm going to plug my numbers into it. Please notice that I'm putting parentheses around my negative 13 to force the calculator to do the squared of the correct number. If you try to do just negative 13 squared, you might get a wrong answer depending on which calculator you're using. So always put your negatives in parentheses when you're squaring. So it's b squared minus 4 times a times c. The value of a is 2 and the value of c is 15. Please use a calculator when you're doing these calculations. You don't want to mess this up with something simple. So 13 times 13 is the same as negative 13 times negative 13. It's positive 169. Let's take a look at this. Order of operations tells us to do multiplication first here before we do the subtraction. So I'm going to look at 2 times 15 is 30, and 4 times 30 is 120. 169 minus 120, that's 49. I like that number because it's a perfect square. A lot of times when you're using the quadratic formula, it's not a perfect square, but in this example it is. You take the square root of 49, and we get 7. All that work we just did, what it does is it simplifies this whole section right here, the square root of b squared minus 4ac. It's just 7. So let's plug that back in. I've got b squared plus and minus, well, that whole thing that we just did is just 7. And I need to plug in my other numbers. So the negative of b is going to be the negative of negative 13, right? And the negative of a negative is just a positive. So that's 13 plus and minus 7. And then down here on the bottom, we've got 2 times a. So that's 2 times 2, because a is 2. And that just works out to be 4. And we need to find the answer to that, but it's a little bit complicated because there's a plus and a minus. Let's finish this up. So I notice that there's a plus and a minus here in my equation. What that means is I've got to do 13 plus 7, and then I've also got to do 13 minus 7. Give me while I clean this up just a little bit. Nope. No part of that was a good idea. Okay, so we've got 13 plus and minus 7. 1/2 of that is plus, and the other half of that is going to be 13 minus 7. Please notice that 13 plus 7 is just 20. And we've got that over 4. And 20 over 4, 20 divided by 4, is just going to be 5. One of our answers is 5. And then on the other side of this, please notice that 13 minus 7, our other answer, is 6. And so we've got 6 divided by 4. Six divided by 4 is just 1.5. And there's our two answers. I'm going to highlight them in green so you can see both of them. Our answers 5 and 1.5 are the two values of x that will satisfy this original equation. And we got those numbers using the quadratic formula. Thank you very much. This is just one example. There will be others to show some of the special cases and some more examples. So stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you on the other side.